Welcome to Club Wisdom 8. Are we actually going to see Shining Force at all? Well, unfortunately, with the new news that has arisen, I've had to do further investigation and it's... I don't even know where to start. Before I get into everything deeply, the Korean news has shown that with regard to the company Vespa, the one who owns King's Raid and IP for Shining Force Time Defenders and owns like a load of companies abroad, the company's shares have been suspended and they've had like a capital erosion, I think, of over 50%. And currently their stocks are delisted. Now, what this will mean, I'm going to get into it. Before you go any further and get the idea of like maybe the company Vespa ending, disappearing and taking Shining Force and King's Raid with it, before these kinds of ideas come to light, which I'm going to say is not completely like that. I understand Korea well, and I understand their law pretty well. So it's not completely going to be like that. However, you need to have more understanding of the Korean market before this analysis can make more sense. So please try your best to understand what I'm going to explain to you throughout the video and where King's Raid is at the moment in order to see what's going to happen to Shining Force. As we learn about the current day Vespa, let's also consider what happened to make Vespa Vespa. With regard to gaming and games going mobile, it became quite a big trend from around 2013 and 2014 for many Korean companies to get on the bandwagon. You can see here that in 2015, actually, it became quite common in the financial sector to talk about it, even though mobile phone companies like Com2uS or whatever were behind EA in terms of the amount of money they generated. They could survive off just one game, such as the game mentioned here, Summoner's War. Remember that. One game, Summoner's War. And that game, Summoner's War, is still being played today, even though that was being talked about and the amount of money it was being profited from it in 2015. So can you guess, like, how did that leave a company like Vespa? Where did they expect to get their money from? And back then, if we go even back to 2013, mobile games made up 23.9% of the overall market share in South Korea. Can you guess the market share now of mobile games, considering all the South Koreans they jumped in to the pool, loads of companies opened up? Did they make money from that, or did they lose out? As you can see, by 2020, mobile gaming practically, compared to 2013, we got more than double the difference in distribution of the gaming market. And this also doesn't account for the increase in the number of people playing games. So what we have is a major increase. So of course gaming companies have been doing very well for mobiles. As previously mentioned, the titans of mobile games include Com2uS Corp, and they made Summoner's War. We have Nexon, that made the Dark Avenger series as well. We have Gameville, which is actually practically owned or merged with Come2Us. It's all pretty strange, but either way, Monster Warlord was their big game, but actually the game I even play now is by Gameville, and it's called Eternal Saga. I love the game so much. Great strategy game. Other companies include the NHN Corp. They made the likes of Crusader Quest, and although you won't have seen these types of games, most likely you won't have seen these types of games in the Western world, because I'm living in Asia. But these games are big, and I'm not sure if and this kind of game, you can see it looks like Guardian Tales. And Guardian Tales in Asia, where I play, is owned by Kakao, which is another type of Kakao is also another. It's the company actually that's been on my mind for a while, and they're huge. They own Naver and banking. They do banking. They own Line. They do Line games. So there's a lot here. There's a lot coming out of South Korea. So out of all these companies, it was actually Vespa that became the surprise company of the lot. This was the new company, and it was a company that hadn't achieved any success. And their first game, King's Raid, achieved an amazing success, even though, as you can see here, even though it achieved it in the reverse direction. When the game first came out, well, when it first came to the Korean platform, it was at 150 and it dropped down to 209. But through word of mouth, it reached top 10 in sales. And and that's just in South Korea. And that's really amazing for a word of mouth game, because Vespa wouldn't have had too much money to do any advertising. Now, they then brought the game into Japan, and they said it's quite amazing. It's not Vespa who wrote this. So this App Story Korean newspaper, they said that they actually got to the top 20 in sales in Japan, which was quite remarkable because of how hard it is to get any game outside of Japan into Japan. I think Microsoft's Xbox, I think Microsoft understand that pretty well. So King's Raid, as they put here, is a success story. And again, they explain how the secret of the successful entry into Japan lies in capturing the hearts of heavy users with high-level character modeling and scenarios, whatever they're trying to say, because this is a Korean translation. Anyway, they can advertise and say like why they did it well and blah 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 blah. The point is, it's true. Vespa did a great job in Asia with King's Raid. Did Vespa expect King's Raid to do as well as Summoner's Wars and just to continue forever? Well, it seems kinda yes. To the extent that they're bringing King's Raid 2 out, and they've put it back again and again. King's Raid 2 was actually supposed to have been, I thought it was already out, but I found out it was supposed to have been out already, but they've delayed it. And King's Raid players are actually getting a bit irritated by how long it takes updates to come out. Is this a big problem? Well, yes, it is. Actually, King's Raid has so many problems. There's even a special wiki site explaining all the problems in the game. And when I say problems, I've never seen anything like it. Problems starting with billing, filtering, random events and poor planning skills, unclear character skill display, extreme waste collection, Japanese favoritism, interesting, limited costumes, radar, whatever that means, repeated extension checks, unfixed optimization, blah blah blah, it goes on. And that's in general. the problems in 2017, problems in 2018, problems in 2019, 2020, and in 2021, an increase in the issues. Either way, controversy over blah, 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 this, that, server data storage omission. People are unhappy. And if you just think this is a bunch of people whining, think again. On King's Raid's own official website, I found Jin Soo Kim, the CEO of Vespa. He wrote a letter. He wrote a letter at the end of 2021, very close to now, and close to the shareholders meeting that set the fate for Vespa. What did he say? I am Jin Soo Kim, the CEO of Vespa. How have you been doing? Yeah, we're all pretty angry because you haven't updated our game and we have loads of problems. Anyway, I apologize for taking a long time to write a letter. In that time, I have carefully read many complaints from the players. Well, again, he went back to being the CEO. He actually became the CEO, I think, around October, September. I think he originally was the CEO and then he had to... something happened, don't know. Someone else became CEO and then they had to step down. Oh, I wonder why. And then retirement apparently. And then Jin Soo Kim came back. So he spent some time, a month or two, reading letters and complaints. Although we always want to, so he says, although we want to improve King's Raid, we failed to do so this year. So I'm saying the wiki is not just people whining. For the CEO to come out and write that they failed. They're not messing about. The people who have complaints about King's Raid, their complaints are just. Their complaints, I believe, are fair. And this makes me, as a developer and a lover of the game, very ashamed and sorry. Although we put extra effort to reveal King's Raid's mega update, call it mega, bet a lot of people don't think so, of Season 2 quickly, the updates were slightly lacking. I think people don't think slightly is the right adverb there. Anyway, and had many complications due to difficulties we faced. Oh, I wonder what they are. And other issues with the new game. Does that mean with the Season 2 update? Or does it mean with the new game King's Raid 2 that they're making? Or does it mean the Time Defenders they've made? Or does it mean Shining Force? Or does it mean everything? Or does it mean they did nothing? As for blah blah raiders that failed to find their place in the game, repeated farming content, blah blah blah, we apologize again. We bow to you in shame. I said that myself. So we're going to improve it. We will not lose courage. And so we are waiting for your criticisms. We're waiting for your criticism. We are preparing numerous updates for the future. Okay, so we wish you have good health. And we're always grateful for your support. Honestly, I'm going to say that I think this is a real letter. I think because he became CEO again, I don't think he's probably lying like you'd expect him to. So I would say a lot of this is a mirror of his mind. So I would probably say what he wants to say is, we need your support. Please wish us happiness and health. That's from my experience with these kinds of companies. We're preparing numerous updates. We will try to communicate more often and announce them later. I think you should announce them earlier, honestly. But the point being is, they actually... I don't see anything saying we're going to give you gems or whatever they give, the currency. And they said we'll announce them later. And up until this day, Vespa haven't given any new announcements. So... well, they've given an announcement of an update to the game, but in a minute you're going to see how much worse everything's going to get. So, being said, Vespa have had serious problems in 2021. Not only for Time Defenders, but also for King's Raid. This is serious. As now I'm going to explain about Vespa, do not forget all the information I've explained in the last 10 minutes or so, because that information is going to be used to help you understand what's in store for Vespa next. And before I continue, in my next video, I will go over the complete balance sheet of the company. I have everything practically. I have everything on this company. And not just that, I'm even going to go further to show you what Vespa have already done that they've hidden very well from the King's Raid people. So, unfortunately, yeah, there are some bad things that are going to happen, but there may also be some good things. So let's continue. So Vespa suspends stock trading. Yeah, okay, so capital erosion 50%. Acceptable. Suspension of trading until the reason for delisting is resolved or until delisting is decided. So they've been delisted, and this can be considered as temporary, but there may be a decision that their delisting is final. If they're completely delisted, that company is finished. Don't worry though, because because I know Korean law too well. Even if Vespa were embezzling money, which most companies seem to do these days in Korea, they still probably wouldn't be delisted. So it would have to be something huge for a start. Let's continue. So the Korean so I'm trying not to worry you, so don't worry. The Korean exchange KOSDAQ, worry for Shining Force. The Korean exchange KOSDAQ market headquarters announced on the 7th that for the protection of investors, trading of Vespa shares will be suspended until the reason for delisting is resolved or until a decision is made to delist. Vespa has been designated as a management item as it incurred a continued business loss before deducting corporate tax expenses exceeding 50% of its equity capital for the second business year. Yeah, so 2020-2018, the third business year. But it's weird. They don't take the virus. They don't take these kinds of things into consideration. Anyway, so the suspension of stock trading this time is because of the management crisis. It continued as it failed to overcome the capital erosion caused by continued deficit. Okay, so they haven't found a way to pick up their profits. They haven't found a way to make money. So as we guessing, Time Defenders was supposed to do that. Time Defenders was supposed to save Vespa, but it didn't. Vespa said in a public announcement today, in 2021, there was a loss of continuing business before corporate tax that exceeded 50% of equity capital. The reasons for the abolition and additional management items may be designated. Okay, designated to what? Although Vespa has made various attempts to improve its performance over 2 years, no, it hasn't. It is evaluated that it has not been able to overcome the business crisis as a result. The decline in sales of the mobile game King's Raid, which is the main source of revenue, and the failure of new mobile games are considered to be the main reason that prevented earnings improvements. In addition, the fact that major game companies joined the ranks of salary increases and increased fixed costs seem to have had an impact on the management crisis. Now, let's just get into this. So yeah, it's all blah 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 stuff, right? But point being is they're blaming decline in sales of King's Raid. I have the exact sales figures for King's Raid, and I'm going to say they knew King's Raid was going down and down and down. So their idea was to make something called King's Raid 2, but actually, and now I've looked into it more, it's actually King's Raid Season 2, kind of. So who knows what's going to happen with that one. Either way, it's declined in sales and a failure of new mobile games. So when I say games, my idea is it's not just Time Defenders. It probably could be like Agretsuko, like the Hive game. And I'm starting to suspect that maybe Hive didn't completely develop the game. There's just not enough credit given to them. and they must have just paid a bunch of people to do it. They might have like used a separate company, like in the old days when Nintendo used a separate company, you know, to make their games. So they own other companies like Super Colony. I think Super Colony are the ones that make that like type of strategy army game, and I've never heard that game, and I'm living in Asia. If it's not doing well in Asia, and I don't see it in the American charts, so I'm guessing the other companies they own are just not making like games that are successful. Otherwise they would have, or Vespa would have already advertised it. So that just games have been made and they haven't reached success, but they've hardly made any games. That's the thing. Now, this is what gets me. Join the ranks of salary increases and increased fixed costs. It's had an impact on the management crisis. Now, what they're failing to explain here is that I read in another article that Vespa gave one of the biggest promotions ever to its employees of any other game company. They just gave a huge one, and I think it was like January or something, 2021. They gave a huge increase, like it was way too huge. So that's the first thing. We were very suspicious. And what this doesn't also explain about the management crisis is that their CEO, he doesn't say that their CEO quit, which they said retired. Yeah, right. Their CEO was fired, quit, I don't know. Their old CEO. Something went very wrong in this company. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, something very serious is going on, and the authorities are going to have to look into seeing what exactly has gone down. What went down with this company. If you watched my previous videos, you'll see Vespa admitted it. They said openly, we're losing money. And they, again, over time, they kept saying why and why and why. And I think by the last two videos, I was growing quite skeptical. And when I made those videos, actually, some of the videos were already, I brought them out before this was announced. And the videos that came out even after this was announced, those videos were made before that anyway. I was already pretty skeptical of what was happening up until Christmas. What shocked me the most was that Vespa just wouldn't give any updates for anything. They just went silent. They didn't talk about anything to do with their Q2 and Q3 share updates. They just went silent. And then all of a sudden they said, we have a special shareholders meeting. And that was it. And that special one was the meeting on February. And that's when all this came to be. So, what does all of this mean for Shining Force exactly? Well, I'm going to go into details on, in general, how the KOSDAQ, Korean process works in the next video with regard to delisting, and following which, with what Vespa have been doing, the management processes they have undertaken to try and fix the situation from what I've seen. And also I'm going to go into their financials in a bit more detail, and you can even figure it out for yourself what's going to happen to Shining Force. But if you want my speculation, it will be also in the next video. Thank you.